My sister stole my fiancé just 3 days before our wedding, and that was the moment I decided to give her something she would never be able to forget. From the very beginning, Maya had been the kind of sister people described as charming or magnetic. Strangers loved her confidence, her beauty, her ability to light up a room. But growing up with her was a completely different story. Behind the dazzling smile was someone selfish, competitive, and willing to snatch anything that wasn't hers. As kids, I saw the pattern again and again. If I got a doll, she would cry until she was bought a prettier one. If I brought home a new friend, she would whisper little lies until that friend slowly drifted away from me and into her circle. My parents brushed it off, saying, "That's how sisters are. She just wants to be like you." But I knew better. It wasn't about wanting to be like me. It was about making sure I had nothing of my own. Even with all of that, I still tried to be the good sister. I let her wear my clothes, borrow my things, even covered for her when she made mistakes. But the truth was, Maya was never satisfied. She always wanted more. And that never changed, not even when we grew up. By the time I had my career settled and finally found love, I thought those old patterns were behind us. His name was Daniel. He was warm, attentive, the kind of man who made me feel like I mattered. For once in my life, I wasn't living in Maya's shadow. I was standing in my own light. When Daniel proposed, it felt like everything I had ever lost was being given back to me. My parents were thrilled. My friends cried happy tears, and I finally believed that maybe, just maybe, my story would turn out differently from Maya's. But the moment I saw the look in her eyes, I knew better. At the engagement party, Maya clapped the loudest, hugged me the longest, told everyone how happy she was for me. But in her eyes, that same glimmer I had recognized since childhood, the look she gave whenever she had decided that something I owned would soon belong to her. At first, I convinced myself I was overthinking. She laughed a little too loudly at Daniel's jokes, found excuses to text him about wedding planning, always managed to sit close to him at family dinners. But I told myself it was harmless, that I was paranoid, that old scars were making me doubt. Then came the late-night messages. I'd see her phone light up, Daniel's name on the screen, and when I asked, she would brush it off with a laugh. "It's just a surprise for you," she'd say. The surprise arrived sooner than I expected. 3 days before the wedding, I walked into my apartment, exhausted from final fittings, my hands still carrying bags of decorations. I opened the bedroom door, and there it was. My sister, in my bed, with my fiancé. Time didn't explode with screaming or crying. It shattered in silence. My keys almost slipped from my hand. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. Maya's face turned pale, caught between guilt and defiance. Daniel stammered my name like it could erase what I was seeing, but I didn't collapse. I didn't shout. I didn't even cry. I simply turned, walked out of the room, and sat down on the couch. Because in that silence, something inside me clicked. They thought they had broken me, but they had only handed me the perfect chance to break them. The wedding would still take place, just not the way anyone expected. The hours after catching Maya and Daniel together felt unreal. I remember sitting on the couch, staring at the wall, hearing muffled whispers from the bedroom as they scrambled to dress. But I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't collapse. When they finally walked out, Maya had the nerve to lift her chin, as if daring me to scream at her. Daniel opened his mouth to explain, but no explanation could erase what I had just seen. My voice came out steady, almost calm. "Get out." And they did. That night, I didn't cry myself to sleep. I didn't call my friends. I didn't even tell my parents. Instead, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking. Every part of me wanted to tear the wedding apart, to call the guests and tell them it was off. But another part of me, the part that had endured years of Maya's cruelty, whispered something else. Don't cancel, don't run, let it happen, and make her regret it forever. By morning, the plan had already begun forming in my head. When Maya came to see me 2 days later, she acted like nothing was wrong. She actually sat across from me at the kitchen table, sipping coffee as if she hadn't destroyed my life. "You're overreacting," she said coolly. "It just happened. Daniel and we're in love. You'll find someone else." Her words burned through me, but I didn't flinch. I forced myself to nod, to keep my face blank. That was the moment I decided. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. "Then you should have him," I said simply. Her eyes widened. She wasn't expecting that. But before she could respond, I added, "And you'll have him at the wedding." For a brief moment, she looked confused. Then a sly smile crept onto her face, the kind of smile I had seen so many times before, the one she wore whenever she thought she had won. But she didn't know the truth. The wedding was no longer mine. It was my stage, and she and Daniel were about to become the main act in a show they would never forget. In the days that followed, I acted normal. I smiled at my parents. I told friends the wedding was still on. I even pretended to take comfort in Maya stepping in. Inside, though, I was working quietly, carefully. Every detail mattered. Every piece of proof I had collected, the texts, the messages, the late-night calls, would all come together. While they were busy celebrating their secret victory, I was building the trap. From the outside, nothing seemed different. Guests were still excited, my parents were still busy with arrangements, and Maya acted like she had simply stepped into my life as if it was her right. She even walked around the house trying on my jewelry, flipping through my wedding binder, and humming to herself like a bride-to-be. But what she didn't realize was that behind my calm smile, I was preparing every detail of her downfall. The first thing I did was gather proof. I already had the late-night messages saved, the suspicious receipts, and the call logs. But I needed more, something undeniable. So while Maya was busy pretending to help with decorations, I went through Daniel's things, his laptop, his emails, his private folders. And there it was, hotel confirmations, credit card charges, pictures he thought he had hidden, piece by piece. I built a perfect timeline of their betrayal. Every lie, every secret meeting, every kiss that happened behind my back. Next, I turned to the wedding itself. The guest list was full of family, friends, colleagues, and even business partners. This wasn't just a celebration, it was a stage, and I was going to use it. I contacted the videographer and made a special request, a highlight reel. He thought it was a surprise for Daniel, so he agreed to play it during the reception on the big screen. Of course, he didn't know that the highlight reel would be something Maya and Daniel never wanted anyone to see. Meanwhile, I kept my act flawless. At dinners, I smiled. With my parents, I acted grateful. Around Maya, I was calm, almost welcoming. I let her think she had won. Because people like her don't know how to handle silence. They only understand drama. So when I gave her nothing, she grew careless. She let her guard down completely. The night before the wedding, I watched her stand in front of the mirror, trying on the veil she had snatched from my dresser. She actually had the audacity to grin at me through the reflection. "Don't worry," she said softly. "I'll take care of him." I forced a small smile and replied, "I know you will." Inside, my heart was racing, not from heartbreak anymore, but from anticipation. Tomorrow, all of this would unfold exactly as I had planned. Tomorrow, the perfect sister and the perfect fiancé would finally reveal who they really were. Not just to me, but to everyone. The trap was set, and I couldn't wait for the curtain to rise. The morning of the wedding arrived, and everything looked picture perfect. The venue was decorated with flowers, guests filled the pews, and cameras flashed as my family greeted relatives. To anyone watching, it was a normal wedding day, but for me, it was opening night. And Maya and Daniel were the stars of the show. Maya walked around in my dress, acting as though she was the rightful bride. She clutched the bouquet like she'd earned it, her face glowing with the kind of arrogance only she could wear. Daniel, standing beside her, looked nervous, but he held her hand tightly, as if that would make their betrayal acceptable. When the ceremony began, everyone smiled, unaware of what was about to happen. I stayed calm, waiting for my moment. I had already instructed the videographer when to play the highlight reel. My parents thought it was a sweet surprise for the couple, and in a way, it was, just not the kind anyone expected. The vows were exchanged, rings slipped onto fingers, guests clapped and cheered, and then, as the reception began, the lights dimmed and the big screen came alive. At first, soft music played. The first few slides showed smiling faces, but not mine, Maya's. Her photos with Daniel, their late-night selfies, the hotel confirmations, the receipts. Gasps echoed across the room as message after message appeared. Flirty texts, secret plans, proof of every lie. Maya froze, her bouquet slipping from her hand. Daniel's face turned pale, his jaw tightening as whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. My parents sat stunned, their smiles replaced with horror. The music stopped, replaced by a silence so heavy it crushed the room. And then came the final slide, a simple sentence across the screen. "Here's the wedding gift you'll never forget." The guests erupted, some in shock, some in whispers of pity, others in laughter they tried to hide. Phones came out, flashes of light capturing every second. Relatives shook their heads, colleagues murmured, and Maya's friends avoided her eyes. Maya spun toward me, her face twisted with rage. "You planned this," she hissed, her voice trembling. I smiled calmly, my hands folded in front of me. "Of course I did. Did you really think I'd let you win this time?" Daniel tried to speak, but his words drowned in the chaos of the room. Guests were already pulling out their phones, sharing the scandal in real time. What was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives had just become the most humiliating moment they would ever experience. And me? I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I simply stood there, calm and steady, watching them finally taste the pain they had fed me. The gift was complete. But the show wasn't over yet. The reception never recovered. Guests whispered, avoided eye contact, and one by one began to leave. What was meant to be a celebration turned into a public scandal that no one would ever forget. Maya stood frozen, her mascara streaking down her cheeks as relatives walked past her without a word. Daniel tried to grab her hand, but she yanked it away, her chest heaving with fury. For once, the two of them weren't united. They were drowning separately, exposed in front of everyone. My parents sat in silence, stunned, ashamed. They couldn't look at me, couldn't even speak. For years, they had excused Maya's behavior as sibling rivalry. But now, with the evidence flashing across the big screen, they couldn't deny who she really was. By the end of the night, the hall was nearly empty. Maya stormed out first, throwing the bouquet onto the floor as she shoved past guests. Daniel followed, but he didn't even try to defend her anymore. He knew it was over, not with me, but with his reputation, his family, his future. In the days that followed, the fallout was brutal. Word spread quickly, videos of the reveal circulated online, and whispers of their betrayal reached everyone in our community. Daniel lost clients at work. Maya's so-called friends stopped answering her calls, and my parents finally admitted that she had gone too far. Maya tried to spin the story, of course. She told anyone who would listen that I was jealous and vindictive. But it didn't matter. The truth was out there, undeniable. and no one believed her anymore. As for me, I didn't need to say much. I carried myself with quiet dignity, letting their disgrace speak louder than any words I could offer. People looked at me differently, not as the poor girl left behind, but as someone strong enough to take control of her own story. Weeks later, I finally sat alone, replaying everything in my mind. Did it hurt? Yes. Betrayal always leaves scars, but watching Maya and Daniel crumble under the weight of their own choices gave me the closure I needed. On what was supposed to be my wedding day, I didn't walk down the aisle. I didn't say vows, but I did give a gift of truth, wrapped in silence, delivered in front of everyone who mattered. And judging by the way their lives fell apart after that night, I know it's a gift they will carry with them forever.